Hello, everyone watching. My name is Sandy George, and with me is Maria Zidar, writer and director of the documentary Reconciliation. Thanks so much for making yourself available, Maria.
Thank you so much.
I've seen you refer to this film as very personal. What should I take from you saying that?
Different aspects. It's personal when you're there with the protagonists. As a filmmaker, you're not just the observer. You're also feeling the situation with them, and it's a story about a conflict, and that's really difficult to live and relive with the people. Personal also in the sense that I set off to a very openly patriarchal society. And in a way, now that I'm thinking, probably I wasn't analyzing it so much at the time, but it was confronting some aspects, some things that maybe in my society are more difficult to confront just because they're more covert on a very personal level. So I had to confront some very open patriarchal attitudes that where I live are still present, but in a much more concealed form. So it's much more difficult to respond to them. And it's a story about conflict, which I think is very universal. It's set in a very specific setting, of course, which is maybe unknown to all international audiences, but in essence, the way we try to present it, it's a human story about conflict, and those exist in every family. Just the fact that here we have 3 different value systems, which make it really hard for them to resolve because they are not agreeing on which value system to use to resolve this problem.
Yeah. How, when, and where did you find this particular story? And was there a kind of clincher that made you think, yes, I want to make a film about this?
The topic was proposed to me long ago. In 2013, we were editing a documentary which was partly shot in the Albanian populated Kosovo. And this Albanian professor and researcher said to me, there's this topic that has been covered 1,000 times and never correctly. And it intrigued me what he meant by never correctly. And I started researching. The way this topic was presented is as if these old laws have persisted to the present day. It was all very mysterious. No one knew exactly what the male patriarchs of the family were dealing, and just the consequences were put forward, which was women and children suffering. And there was so I started researching also in the way that these old laws used to exist, and extremely traditional patriarchal societies were not very, pleasant for women. And that struck a chord in me. But I also saw, I was doing my PhD in sociology at the time, and I saw kind of the bigger picture, which was that this was a country in transition, which is very much like Slovenia was. We were part of former Yugoslavia. And what happens is you have these old value systems do not just disappear. You have them underlying still in the society, forgotten to an extent, because what happened here that the rules and regulations, which used to be really strict in the actual tribal society, have disappeared. So just this mentality remained that they should do something, but it turned into a very modern process. As you can see in the film, we have a person from the capital with his own NGO pretending or putting himself forward as the representative of an old law. But just the situation of a collision of different value systems, as I said, on the one hand, religion, because to give just a little bit more background, what happened in Albania was there was probably the harshest communist dictatorship in Europe for 50 years under the dictator Enver Hoxha. and he ruthlessly suppressed religion, all traditional life, all traditional forms of social behavior. And when the system collapsed in early 1990s, there was a void. So the new democratic government then fell in mid-90s because there was a large number of Ponzi schemes. So just this situation of chaos, what to rely on, which took a long time. I mean, this is a very specific setting in a very isolated area. It's not representative of the entire country, of course. But just this setting was something that reminded me of something that's actually happening in Europe, where I saw these far-right populist movements proposing old solutions. So suddenly we had religion interfering in state matters and relying on our glorious fictional national pasts. And there was also distrust in the state and the rule of law, which I found to be in a very strange way, very similar to what I started researching. And it echoed me, and that's why the topic intrigued me. I didn't see it as something really remote. I saw it as, here's what happens if there's no social agreement on how we will resolve an issue. And then always a middleman appears that tries to navigate, you know, left and right and use it for their own ends. So this was mine.
So while looking at all this, did you find a number of stories you could have followed, or was there a reason you went with this family?
Yeah, of course. I mean, doing research, we visited lots of cases that are presented in the media as blood revenge. But the thing is, access to journalists and filmmakers to these cases, to the families who are in conflict, is given by precisely these NGOs in whose vested interest it is to keep the myth of this blood revenge alive. The myth, by myth, I'm saying none of the rules or regulations are observed. So just shooting someone in a heated argument, that was never part of Albanian blood revenge. This was so ritualized and so codified that it was sometimes impossible to take revenge in a very enclosed community. So what's happening now is basically ordinary crime that they're justifying as tradition. And then, as I said, you have these middlemen who so it's, yeah, we visited lots of cases and I tried to bypass their cases because they control them. And we got to the family in Lake Bibai through the bishop who visits the father. And in parallel, we followed this mediator in Tirana, whose NGO, non-governmental organization, is actually the largest in the country, just because I was really intrigued in what they were doing. And it wasn't for over a year and a half, I think, before the two stories suddenly merged. Before that, neither the father nor the mediator ever met. And just accidentally, we were in the mountains one day with the mediator, with Jin Marco, and he found out that we're following another case and got jealous, I think, because he thought he was, you know, making this important European documentary, and he was posing a lot, as I think it's pretty visible. And he said, oh, I'm going to show them how it's done and I'm going to get involved. And then he actually tried to get out of this story a few times because it was really clear from the beginning that this story is not going to end well, thus not make him look good. But the other cases, not to say that these individuals and families are not in distress, but just to call them blood revenge, you cannot really do that anymore, because actually there were lots of inconsistencies. So for example, I would get the court case of this actual case, and the way it was presented to me and the actual court case didn't match. Also, families were presented as self-imposed, which is a very specific term. It means a family that male members have to stay inside the house and not go outside because they are under blood revenge. And so this actually in most situations was not true. So we would come there unannounced and no one was actually at home. Still not saying that there are not issues and that, but just the way it was presented, yeah, it was false. So
yeah. Let's talk about the actual filmmaking for a while. I mean, the film is just so fabulously observational, a great example of that type of documentary. How easy was it or how did you make the family feel quite comfortable about having cameras in their faces?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for Jin it was easy, as I mentioned, because he was enthusiastic about posing, performing the role in front of the camera. For the family, the initial access was through the bishop, but that could only mean we could come there once or twice. Even my friends in Tirana, in the capital, found it hard to believe that we could film there over a span of 4 years, just because these communities are extremely close. This was a conflict, an actual conflict, and this never happened before. No, never before has a camera been present before and after, yes, but not during. Mm-hmm. I think it was just the human side of it. I really felt this situation on a personal level. And it was actually, I believe, when the mother saw that I'm not here just to take something or misrepresent something, that we got access, as it is called. But it took a very long time. Yeah, so I think it's just like every documentary filmmaker, it's the human side of you that you have to put forward. At least that's my personal belief, that I always put myself in their shoes, thinking how I would feel if someone would come to my family in this kind of situation. And I would think that I would find it pretty horrifying if there was someone just observing, or that I would see that they're just trying to catch moments, or even tell us what to do. So we never used this approach. We never told them what to do, which was then difficult in editing. But I really wanted them just to show me whatever they wanted to show. And I think they found after a while some support, because the father was quite ostracized in the community. I mean, he always gave these religious speeches and so on and so forth. And the entire community was more on the side of the killer of his daughter. They're just more sociable and just, old past. And I felt that after a while, he felt that we are witnessing something, that he has like a record of something that's happening that people couldn't lie.
I felt as though it hasn't been resolved, but in your opinion, has it been resolved?
No, I in the film I tried to show two types of attempt of a resolution. The first one, the way they attempted it, which I found to be really insincere and sometimes even grotesque. Grotesque in the sense that no one acknowledged the emotional side of it. And that's why I found the mother's outburst, which was really unexpected in the end, so significant, because she kind of released this emotion that the man just kind of kept under wraps and tried to play this chess game of partially being hurt, partially ego. So I found it to be a very human situation overall. And the second type of a forgiveness, I would say, is a modern type of forgiveness, because I think the way they tried to attempt it and the way it was done in the old days is that they would emotionally come together. And I think that's impossible if the other side does not acknowledge what happened. You cannot shake hands with someone who's telling you that this was just an accident and why you're blowing it out of proportion. And on the other hand, the father's demanding from them to not only apologize in a very specific way, but also acknowledge something that happened during the time of communism, actually. I felt this is not going to go anywhere either. And forgiveness in the modern sense for us is really letting go. So you focus on your own life, and you are not trying anymore to get the acknowledgement for the damage that's been done. And that's the last part of the film for me, because he kind of neglected the entire family throughout. So I felt this is another way of resolving it. I wouldn't have filmed this family if I hadn't seen in the very beginning that there was also this other side of it, aside from this difficult, claustrophobic, dark, and also sometimes ugly situation, and which was just the bonds and love between them. So I felt, look, you have your, children and your family and your life, and that's perhaps where the value is. You're never gonna get acknowledgement for what happened. So yeah,
that was such a beautiful scene where he reads the poem to him. It was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
This is the last question, Maria. So the ending of the film, though, is so sort of beautiful, like, spring. Everyone seems really happy, but what you're saying doesn't seem to match the ending to me. But tell me your thought processes about ending the film in that way, given what you've said.
I mean, you said the situation seems unresolved. It is unresolved among them, as between the two sides of the family, and that's a fact. This reconciliation did not happen. This was an ingenuous attempt, really, and as I said, I see the ending as a kind of a possible emotional resolution. And I have to say that the family was very happy with it. I went to Albania in March before we premiered in Copenhagen, because I had promised to them that I would show them the film. And they felt it was really important to me that they feel that is their story, that it's not my story told about them. And they said that that's how it was. The mother said that's how it was. I got angry, but that's how it was. So yeah, the way I see it is this spectacle, this theater, this attempt of a ritual failed. The conflict is still there, but I wanted to show that there is another option of resolving this, which is getting out of the conflict and not playing this chess game at all, because there's another aspect of life well worth focusing on. And just to add, if I may, because I found this, you mentioned the poetry reading, and that was really surprising, because I have to tell you just before this scene, a month ago, we went with him to film something else, and he mentioned that his wife told him, "You never said you loved me. You never said, I want you to say, I love you. You never said these words. I know that you love me, but you never said the words." And he said, I really never said them. So a month later, this happened, and it was completely unexpected. All of a sudden, he brings the paper and starts writing. And even my DOP was confused what was happening. He just stayed in the back, and I tell him, go to the front. And he was just, yeah, so it was beautiful and genuine and not planned at all. Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to us about this film, and more for showing us this part of the world that we're not familiar with. It's been really excellent talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for these intriguing questions that allow me to say something more about the background. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.